Hey everybody, this is Brett from Moonstream. I just wanted to come in and do a quick update on the markets here. I've been on vacation for a little bit and thought it'd be a good time to come in and update everybody on what I'm seeing in the markets here. Seeing a bit of a sell-off today, obviously. I wanted to just touch on a couple things and give you my thoughts on where we could go, what's likely for what's next, and what's around the corner. So in this chart of Bitcoin on the daily time frame, had a bit of a sell-off here. Came right down into these order blocks where we can see there's lots of order buyers here. So holding that key 84K level temporarily or for now. Hopefully we do hold that and we'll put in a higher low. However, have a bearish engulfing candle on the daily and still have sell pressure overhead. These are visualizations of where the limit buy and sell orders are on the order books. And so the red arrow here is one of our signals showing more likely downside, as well as this one here confirming that. So on the daily time frame, I do think we'll drift down for a bit, possibly even retest that 78K, which was the CME gap, which did come down and fill, and I was watching for that to happen also. So temporary downturn and the markets, the weekly is looking a little bit better though. So getting a bullish arrow here on the weekly, and our other signals are showing oversold. So I think we're going to come down here maybe in the next week. A lot of fear around April 2nd when President Trump's going to be announcing or implementing the tariffs on these other countries. So there's some fear, uncertainty, and doubt around that. I wouldn't worry about it too much. I would be more excited to be buying dips soon. Not quite yet, but once we get a confirmation and start turning higher again, I think we're going to see some really nice movement. Just seeing more sell pressure here in the near term. So with that, we'll kind of jump over. We can also see that in the total market cap here, lots of red overhead. Concerns me a bit that there's so much sell pressure on the total market cap. And if we compare that to total 2 and total 3, which remove Bitcoin and remove Ethereum, it looks slightly better. So that tells me that primarily there's sell pressure on Bitcoin and Ethereum, but still looking a little bit bearish here. I think we could run down into this other green box, put in a higher low, hopefully, and then really take off to the upside. Of course, waiting for some kind of a catalyst. I will just jump over to show that we have the liquidation cycles here. This is this study I've shown a few times, and we have been seeing some liquidity coming into the markets. I have a chart I can pull up here. I should have done that already, but showing that the global liquidity has been going up. The M2 liquidity in the United States also going up. And so those are positive things with a bit of a delay. And so we should see things turning around, start to head higher on those as well. And so what I'll do is I'll pull that up off screen so we can find it. I have that bookmarked and want to show that to you. But in terms of the total market cap, total 3, we could see a push higher from here. And because these others like total DeFi looking okay, but lots of sell pressure overhead. So is it possible we can see a mini alt season prior to a big Bitcoin move? It's possible. We don't know, and we want to keep an eye on things very carefully here in the near term. And jumping over to this other study that I've been working on for some time now, all the way back here in November. And was starting to, early March here. We were looking at this study where the total, or the USDT dominance rather, was mimicking a pattern that previously called the lows and highs before going into the bear market up in here. So it's not drawn exact, but it has been echoing this somewhat and following this. So I have it labeled as crypto correction zone, crypto crash, and then the bear market. And so we are seeing USDT dominance pushing higher. I'll move this out of the way. As more money goes into stable coins and out of the markets, it's going to correspond with that lower markets on the total market cap in Bitcoin. And so this is a critical area here. We're holding below this upper trend line here, which is sloping down. Really want to see USDT dominance start coming down again and do something more like this so we can get another bite at the apple, so that we come down to this range where markets rally, and then look for a double bottom here on this lower trend line, where if we push up from there, we could get into crypto crash zone and the bear market. Don't want to get too far into that. Again, it's an inverse relationship, but I'm watching that, as well as the IBIT. The 4-hour IBIT did have a gap to the downside, which we did come down and fill. So this gap is now filled, and in doing so created a new gap to the upside. So that's bullish for price movement. These are also called fair value gaps. Won't get into that right now. I will redraw this trend line, hopefully bouncing off of that. But this can be a good indicator for where Bitcoin price is going, because the ETFs, while they had been buying recently, after selling for a while, they're starting to sell off again, and there's a lot of money that is moving in and out of those. Now, there's some speculation that the administration is trying to sort of coordinate a market dump and push more people out of risk-on assets and into bonds. And more people going into bonds creates a less inflationary environment, and that is helpful because in those situations they can sort of force the Fed into dropping interest rates. And so there's $7 trillion in debt that needs to be refinanced and for the government and this year. So obviously it's in the best interest of the country and the administration to lower interest rates, but the president can't just call up Powell. He sort of tried, and Powell said, yeah, I'm not going to do that. So I think, this cycle is different in that there's some maneuvering going on. We'll call it maneuvering, not manipulation, but to sort of create the kind of environment where the Fed says, yeah, we've got to start easing and lowering interest rates. Now, they did sort of signal they're going to ease off on quantitative tightening. So we had this bit of a rally here recently, but really we need to see interest rates start coming down from the Fed level. Trueflation is showing we're already below 2% inflation, so that's good. We just need to sort of get these things all aligned. But I do think once we have the right conditions and they refinance that debt, we'll start to see markets really take off, and so we're in a kind of a waiting game with that. The Bitcoin hash ribbon indicator did fire a buy. This is a good sign. Traditionally, when we see this blue circle, prices tend to push higher after the miners capitulate, and these are labeled here. When miners are selling, they are needing to sell to pay for their energy, for their mining rigs, and typically those are in more bearish conditions. You can also look at it on a weekly time frame, and usually prices don't go back below the most recent hash ribbon buy zone. We've had a few instances where that did happen, so it's not exact, but it is typically a near-term buy signal. So we'll be watching that when the miners are starting to show buy signals. So we have a bit of mixed signals here on the 1 hour, 4 hour. This is a pretty messy chart here, so we don't have to look at all this, but the signals were there for the recent sell-off around 88K. We saw the sell pressure lining up right around 88K here, and sure enough, Bitcoin price sold down. Still some sell pressure overhead on the 1 hour, but the buyers are lining up here around 83K and all the way down to 81K. It's sort of a wait and see game. If we do pull down out of this zone and bounce up into this range and reject, however, this is total market cap. Going back to Bitcoin, we can see it here. Then we could see more downside. We could even see come down to the 73, 74K level, potentially even 70K, and still be in a macro bull market. But obviously nobody wants to see that. And we can just draw this here on, we're holding, we certainly want to hold that 50-week exponential moving average. I'll show a cleaner chart here. Traditionally, that has been an important line in the sand. And so I think we could come down to this range around 78K again, still holding the 50-week exponential moving average. And then conditions improve. I do have an early reversal indicator showing there, one of our proprietary indicators. But typically when those align with some of our other signals here, we do get a rip-roaring rally out of that when we get this alignment. Right now we're heading down on the Bitcoin weekly. Sorry, we are bottoming on the Bitcoin weekly and waiting for that to start to turn green. So don't want to get in the weeds too much with that. Let's go down the list and see if anything else jumps out. Solana has been showing some signs of relative strength after this big sell-off here. I think that potentially, I'll just open this up a bit. I have this labeled as my DCA buy zone. I've nearly doubled my Solana over the last year just by buying in this green zone where the buyers are at this 125 range, right around there, setting buy limit orders between 110, 115, 120, 125, and usually it bounces out of this. So I have sold some of my Solana yesterday and today. I have buy limit orders in this green box from 110 all the way up to 125 to catch that bounce and be looking to sell around 160 to 170 for another pullback, and where I'll buy back in, never selling the whole position, but kind of swing trading that range as it pushes higher and upward to that 250 range if we see that later this year, which I think we will. A couple other ones, Aptos kind of looking interesting, coming down near a buy zone, not making any buy recommendations on these. These are just oversold coins that I've been keeping an eye on. Not much happening in these markets. So with that, there's not much more that I wanted to share with you today. We talked about the liquidity, the USDT dominance, the hash ribbon, the IBIT. So we've covered all the bases here. I do want to just pull up here that other signal, and for the M2 rate of change, and let's see, it's right here. I'll pull it over right onto this chart so we can take a look at this, and this shows that the M2 global M2 liquidity rather has been on the rise. So I'll just zoom in on that, and we can see that this has been on the rise, and so the price of Bitcoin usually follows this with a period of delay, 10, 12 weeks. Sometimes it varies, but we can see here that the M2 supply is going up, and this is a little bit skewed here based on the how I have it zoomed in. But at any rate, if we reset the zoom, the M2 supply pushing higher in pink, Bitcoin should start to follow that. And it's just starting to turn up. Let me see if I can zoom in and do a better job on that so we can see that a little bit more clearly. And yeah, so in pink, pushing up higher, Bitcoin starting to push up to catch up here. We saw M2 kind of pushing up here back here in February. So, you know, a month, 2 months behind, really due for the price of Bitcoin to start following the M2 growth and global supply. So anyway, hopefully that makes sense, and hope you guys have a good week. Wanted to get an update out here. Was chatting with Max last night, so he asked me to push something out, and I said sure. So hope you guys have a great weekend. We'll know more next week, and after the market sort of digests let me jump back over to Bitcoin, digest the news, or see what happens once that April 2nd date comes in, and how the world reacts to, you know, the tariffs going into effect. Probably these are part of the maneuvering to help get the economy, you know, maybe pushing it down a little bit of controlled demolition to force the Fed's hand into starting to ease and drop interest rates, and of course creating a better, more risk-on environment. In the short term, they want a risk-off environment, so traders, investors buy bonds, and that helps with the overall inflation. So hopefully that makes sense, and we'll keep you updated. Okay, everyone, have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, bye-bye.